Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from Software Architecture in New York City. I'm here with Molly Dishman from Thoughtworks. Molly, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. So how's the conference been so far for you?
Good. I think I really liked the keynotes this morning. I thought they were a good variety of topics and a good intro to some of the conversations that they want to have at the conference.
Excellent. So Thoughtworks, when I think of Thoughtworks, I think of you guys are doing everything. You basically have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So what are some of the cool things you guys are working on?
I think there's the typical consultant answer is it depends, but there's a wide range because Thoughtworks is a global consultancy. We've got all kinds of interesting things going on, and they're relative to kind of the region we're in. Anything from there's a project we call it Bomni, and it's helping bring a couple of different open source platforms together for nonprofit hospitals and health centers in rural, impoverished areas to things like helping look at the enterprise and how they can be more lean and measuring different valuable things.
I would imagine that's a hot
measuring
one.
That's definitely a hot one. Yeah. Trying to contrast it with very rigid enterprise agile to looking at how can teams still be autonomous, but measure what they're doing in regards to enterprise goals.
So one of the things we see, and I would imagine you guys help solve that, a lot of companies that have evolved over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years or whatever, and they have pretty in place practices, the way they build software or hardware or whatever they're building.
Yep.
And it's not easy to turn that ship.
No.
So you guys go in and look at their whole architecture of how they build things, or how do you guys go about looking at that and helping them transition?
Yeah, architecture is just one piece of that problem, right? So sometimes those 30, 40 years, it becomes as much an architectural problem as it is a cultural problem. Yep. And sometimes it's more that you can start and strangle off that problem, like you do in architecture, is looking at what groups are more receptive to changes. Similarly, what kind of code can be moved away from a monolith. So it could be architecture, it could be a culture, it could be that there's maybe an easy way to show progress in one area, and that will end up opening a lot of doors. That's sometimes where we're looking is.
So that little tiny progress can help open up the rest of the.
Sometimes, yeah.
So if you look at the companies that you work with in the different industries, what are the most common things that people are struggling with? Is it culture? Is it architecture? Is it technologies, tools, or a combination?
It's definitely a combination. So the companies that are 30 to 40 years old, and sometimes that's looking at they have some very solid foundational technologies, but they want to disrupt themselves or play with the people that are disrupting them. So they have to look at is it something that they need to change in their culture? Is it new technology they need to adopt? It could be that the old systems are great but great at what they do, and they need to not use that same hammer for all the problems. I hate giving the consultant that it depends, but I really think in big enterprises, some of those are figuring out the right technology to introduce so you can play with the other things, but also remaining core to what is core to your business.
If you look at the other side, the small disruptors that all of a sudden are faced with scaling to a massive level, what are the issues that they have? I mean, because they have a different set of issues, but it's typically not a long-lived culture and long-lived way of doing something, but they're trying to scale.
There's scalability. There's also things like how do they expand on the things that they're delivering to customers? Sometimes they are very niche. So how do they compete against Google or Apple or Facebook and the those companies basically rule you as a user. How do they make sure that they're, from a user's perspective, essential? And on the technology side, how do they keep people around and keep people interested as they grow to bigger sizes? How do they, from a developers or like kind of culture side, how do they make sure that the feeling of a startup doesn't, or how does it change? I mean, Thoughtworks does that a little. Thoughtworks has been growing too, so we've kind of been looking at that too, of how do you scale culture?
Isn't one of the big things is how do you stay nimble as you get bigger? Because the nimbleness kind of loses its ability to be used.
Yeah, and where do you want to be nimble? Some things, maybe you still want to be able to change them, but they change less frequently, and some things you want to continue to change all the time. So, what are your platform things that need to change? But you also probably still want to build in, and some of those companies, the smaller or with less technical baggage, probably have built in some of the things around continuous delivery practices, or making sure feedback is built into the culture and the technology. So they have an advantage in that perspective. So they've built in some of those things that help them along the way to grow, so that they know that those are valuable to them. So they don't want to sacrifice things like quality. Whereas somebody have lived in the waterfall perspective, there's systems that they don't have no tests, or have no way to know what it's even supposed to do anymore.
It's a black box test,
yeah. So moving from, there's definitely different challenges when you're moving from something that maybe the foundational building blocks are really good, but you want to scale it.
Do you see as many of the smaller companies that are growing needing help, or do you see more of the bigger companies trying to get more responsive and more nimble needing help? Is it the smaller guys growing, or the bigger guys trying to, in a way, adopt modern practices?
If I had to guess, I think more of our requests come from the bigger companies, but I think the smaller companies still need help, but they might not need the same help or know it. Yeah. Sometimes they need delivery help, and that Thoughtworks can do that too, where they need really another team to help build this other feature because they can't hire fast enough, or they want people that they know can deliver quality software in similar fashions. And the big companies really sometimes they really want to learn how to do it well, or look at have us come in and help them look at where can they start attacking this big ball of mud.
So, Molly, if we look 12 months from now,
sure,
and we're going to have the same conversation next year in New York or wherever we are, what do you think of all the technologies that are on the landscape today? Mm-hmm. What do you think will advance a company the quickest in trying to become a more modern software company? Is it containers, or a method to develop software? What do you think is the big promise in the next 12 months?
Well, I think
microservices.
I think the container landscape is really booming, and I think it's very helpful to many companies. I don't know that all companies are ready for it yet. I think that'll probably help a lot of people, and that'll probably change a lot of how we're delivering software. Will that be the biggest? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think that sounds like what we've heard, but so many things happen so quick, you never know what's going to be. The whole idea of cloud services as well. And
I think for the big players, for the big enterprises, they're trying to catch up and really figure out where to use some of these, but not all of them, because they can't invest in all of the new things. So I think between going to the cloud and the containers, there's definitely major waves that can be made in enterprises, for sure.
Opportunities for everyone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll look forward to that conversation next year. Thank you, Molly.